welcome to the Double Chin Show. This is Mike.
It's Dan.
Recently, we made a video about the daily life of an imperial concubine, which a lot of you asked for and loved, and we realized that ancient China has seen many significant women rise to power who all began more or less as an imperial concubine.
Many women have risen to positions of power through the dynasties, but these particular women have all reached the top and some stayed there for quite a while.
So here are some of the most powerful female ancient Chinese rulers. Number 1, Wu Zetian, the first and only female emperor in Chinese history. Wu Zetian ruled during the Tang Dynasty and even briefly self-proclaimed her own dynasty, the Zhou, named after the historic Zhou dynasty. Wu was born into a wealthy family and grew up with many servants. Wu's father, a chancellor at the Tang court, encouraged her to read and write during her free time. Thus, Wu was unusually well educated for a woman of her time. She first entered the palace as Emperor Taizong's concubine. When Taizong passed away, she married his son, Emperor Gaozong, and became emperor's consort. Very Greek tragedy-esque. During Gaozong's reign, Wu became extremely influential in court, even surpassing the emperor himself. Then when Gaozong passed away, Wu became emperor's dowager and ruled through her sons before replacing them altogether, as she believed they were too weak of rulers. After 8 years of unofficial rule, she then officially declared herself emperor and established the Zhou dynasty, which lasted for only 15 years before court officials and Wu's exiled son forced her to abdicate or give up the throne.
Wu is a controversial figure because many thought that she ascended to the dragon throne using violence and manipulation. It is believed that she killed her own infant daughter to frame Gaozong's first wife and first concubine, causing them to be banished by the emperor, thus securing her own place as empress. As emperor, she imprisoned, banished, or executed anyone who was a threat to her reign.
Despite Wu's reputation for being cold and ruthless, she was not tyrannical and considered to be a very efficient leader. The Tang Dynasty expanded further under her rule and enjoyed periods of prosperity. She created a merit-based reward system rather than promote through family status or connections. This allowed her to cut government spending and increase efficiency. She reformed the military by implementing a similar merit-based exam system. She improved the public education system and brought agriculture production to an all-time high.
Wu was eventually forced out due to unpopularity as her attention on ruling turned to her personal relations with her young lovers. She handed the throne over to Zhenzong, her exiled first son, and passed away a year after that at the age of 81. Empress Dowager Hu. Though consort Hu never became empress, she is known today as Empress Dowager Hu because her son became the emperor. She ruled through her young son for many years, though not always successfully. She first entered the palace as a consort for the Emperor Xuanwu of the Northern Wei dynasty. She learned that all of Emperor Xuanwu's consorts were afraid of having a son because it might anger the official consort Empress Guo.
Despite everyone's warning, Lady Hu still prayed for a baby boy. She believed producing a male heir and continuing the imperial line was worth risking death. Her gamble eventually paid off as she did end up giving birth to a son named Yuan Xu, who was named the heir apparent. She ruled on behalf of her young son, but there was widespread dissatisfaction with the way she managed the country.
Emperor Xiaoming was soon murdered. Hu tried to rule through Emperor Xiaoming's 2-year-old brother, but she was soon chased out of the palace by opposing faction led by General Zhurong and forced to drown in the Yellow River.
Liang Na, the good empress with a bad brother. Liang Na was empress to Emperor Shun in the Eastern Han Dynasty. She was destined to be an important woman since a young age. When she entered the palace, she was only 13 years old and she was favored by the emperor who was only a year older. She was soon to be chosen empress.
Empress Liang was said to be extremely virtuous and kind, but she never bore the emperor any children. When Emperor Shun passed away, the son of another concubine was made emperor, and when that young emperor soon died, Empress Liang was given full authority to pick an heir from within the imperial family. The empress consulted with her brother Liang Ji, and they chose a less than desirable candidate because Liang did not want older candidates who did not require a regent. The new emperor also died within 1 year, thought to be poisoned by Liang Ji. Another young emperor was selected, and Empress Liang ruled as regent along with her brother. While Empress Liang was praised for being frugal and humble, serving the people to the best of her abilities, her brother Liang Ji was criticized for being extravagant, greedy, and manipulative after Emperor Huan became of age. She then relinquished control and passed away soon after at the age of 34.
Empress Liu. Empress Liu was Emperor Zhenzong's third empress. She ruled during the Northern Song dynasty and became the de facto ruler of the empire after Emperor Zhenzong fell ill, and she continued to rule through her young son, who became Emperor Renzong. Unlike most empresses and high-ranking concubines, Liu did not come from a noble background. In fact, she was orphaned at birth and became a common entertainer. She entered the palace at age 14, brought in by a man named Gongmei. At the time, her future husband Zhao Heng was just the heir apparent and had not become emperor yet. Zhao Heng was so infatuated with Liu that he began neglecting his duties. This angered Zhao's father, Emperor Taizong, so he ordered Liu to leave Zhao Heng's palace. Liu eventually returned after Taizong passed away. Zhao Heng, now Emperor Zhenzong, happily welcomed Liu back and continued to promote her through the concubine ranks. Liu eventually did become empress, but she still did not bear any children for the emperor. When Emperor Zhenzong finally impregnated a maid, Liu took the child and raised him as her own.
Empress Liu was a smart and perceptive woman, and she was able to understand the emperor's affairs of state. Her good judgment and quick decision-making ability gained the trust of the emperor. Later, when Zhenzong fell ill, he let Liu manage state affairs on his behalf. By the time of the emperor's death, Liu had already become the de facto ruler. She then became Empress Dowager and ruled as regent for her adopted son, Emperor Renzong. Liu held on to her post as regent even after the young emperor came of age at around 17. Furthermore, she was very loyal and generous to people who had once helped her. To thank Gongmei for bringing her to the palace, she appointed him and his relatives to important positions. She died at age 64, and history remembers her well, and she is said to leave behind a peaceful court and kingdom for her adopted son, Emperor Renzong.
Empress Liu Zhi. Liu Zhi is commonly remembered as one of China's most evil women because of the cruel ways she punished her enemies. She is the first wife of Liu Bang, or Emperor Gaozu, founder of the Western Han Dynasty. The couple had two children, one son and one daughter. Their son, named Liu Ying, later became Emperor Hui. Liu Bang was one of the main figures in the rebellions that took place at the end of the Qing Dynasty. He eventually became the first emperor of the Western Han Dynasty, and Liu Zhi played an important role in solidifying her husband's sovereignty. She also played a major role in putting to death many good and loyal chief officials who had helped the emperor during the rebellion.
Gaozu felt that Rui was more suitable to become emperor than Liu Ying, who was a weak but kind-hearted youth. Empress Liu managed to thwart any attempts to have Rui ascend to the throne, so her son Liu Ying successfully became Emperor Hui. However, Liu still deeply resented Concubine Qi. As soon as Gaozu passed away, Liu imprisoned Concubine Qi and assassinated Rui by sending him poisoned wine. After killing Rui, Liu killed Concubine Qi in a gruesome fashion. When Emperor Hui discovered what his mother had done, he was so distraught that he relinquished all control of state affairs, believing that he wasn't worthy to rule a country, having been born from such a cruel woman. So when he did that, Empress Dowager Liu then became the de facto ruler.
Despite her ruthlessness towards enemies, Liu was apparently lenient with the people. After Emperor Hui died, Liu made her grandsons puppet emperors, and she ruled on their behalf, effectively becoming an unofficial female emperor. As supreme ruler, she continuously promoted the members of the Liu family to high-ranking positions to protect her reign. However, as soon as she passed away, at the age of 61, her family members were killed and a new emperor was put in place. So at the end of the day, Liu was extremely cruel and ruthless in her personal life, but this did not affect the people, who enjoyed peace and relative prosperity while she was empress. Empress Dowager Cixi. When it comes to Chinese female rulers, perhaps the most well-known one, apart from Wu Zetian, is Empress Dowager Cixi of the Qing Dynasty. Cixi began her ascension to power as one of Emperor Xianfeng's low-ranking concubines. She may have just been another nameless noble lady had she not bore his only son. When Xianfeng passed away, her 6-year-old son became Emperor Tongzhi. Cixi became Empress Dowager and regent for her young son. After Tongzhi reached maturity, Cixi continued to be involved in state affairs. Tongzhi passed away at a young age, and Cixi's nephew was named Emperor Guangxu. Tongzhi had no sons, but one of his concubines was pregnant at the time of his death. She died in the midst of the debates over succession, so many people think Cixi poisoned her to get rid of the potential heir. Empress Dowager's son passed away soon after, and Cixi gained sole control over the empire.
Cixi led an extremely lavish lifestyle. She spent large sums of money on banquets, jewelry, clothing, etc. She also let financial financial corruption fester within the Forbidden City. 2 years after Emperor Guangxu came of age, Cixi decided to retire to her lavish summer home in northwest Beijing, which she built by using navy funds. Guangxu was able to rule for a decade without Cixi's interference. However, in 1889, following China's defeat in the Sino-Japanese War, Cixi returned to palace, put Guangxu on house arrest, and resumed her regency. From then on, Emperor Guangxu had no more control over state affairs. A day before Cixi's death, Emperor Guangxu died under suspicious circumstances. His death came as a shock as he was not ill. Later, it was confirmed that he died of arsenic poisoning. And though there is no way of telling who did it, many believe that Empress Dowager Cixi was the culprit.
Finally, we have Deng Sui. Deng Sui is probably the one female ruler on this list that has almost no major faults. She has by far the best reputation. Deng Sui was empress to Emperor He of Eastern Han, and after Emperor He passed away, the heir to the throne was too young to rule alone, so Deng was acting as regent. When Deng was only 15 years old, she was selected to enter the palace of Emperor He. She was very beautiful, so she was soon promoted to the rank of worthy lady or guiren.
Deng was known for being modest and understated. While all the other imperial concubines dressed up for banquets, she would dress plainly. When Deng became ill, the emperor allowed her mother and her brothers into the palace to take care of her, but Deng thought that that was inappropriate since outsiders were not typically allowed. The emperor then became very impressed with her virtue and asked to see her more and more. Empress Yin became jealous of Deng and began practicing witchcraft to bring her down. She even threatened to eliminate the Deng family if she ever came into power.
Luckily for Deng, Empress Yin was soon exposed for her witchcraft and was deposed. Deng was then made empress. As soon as she became empress, Deng put in place a policy of frugality, ending the tradition of vassal states bringing precious gifts to the empress. When Emperor He passed away, Empress Dowager Deng made his 3-month-old son Liu Long the emperor, with her ruling as regent. The infant emperor died less than a year after ascending to the throne, so Emperor He's 12-year-old nephew was selected and he became emperor.
Empress Dowager Deng continued to rule as regent, though some urged her relinquish control. That was actually thought to be one of her faults, not letting go of regency soon enough. However, in retrospect, historians agree that Deng had the best interest of the country at heart since Emperor An did not rule as effectively as her. In the 16 years she ruled, not once did her family members overstep their boundaries as officials, which is truly rare in Chinese history. Deng Sui died at the age of 41, with Emperor An taking over full control.
Alright, so there you go, guys. Those are some common people who rose their way through the ranks and eventually came to rule China as women, which are unheard of.
Right.
We're unheard of.
Unheard of. And you know, actually, a lot of historians, they write a lot of information, sometimes painting the women in a bad light. So when we're doing research, you don't truly know what is exactly the truth and what is not, because it's not a popular choice to have women as an emperor.
You know what this shows me? We can do anything we want.
That's right.
Like, literally, if a concubine can rise her way to become empress of China, yeah, you guys can do anything.
You can do anything. You know what that shows? As long as you get your foot in the door, right? You know that saying? Because basically their main thing is, how do I get in the foot of the door of the imperial palace?
Well, then you gotta, you literally are entering into an atmosphere of constant manipulation, struggle, death. Like, it's just such craziness. I mean,
it is really
you talk
crazy.
about a complex workplace. I mean, that's the most complex you'll ever find. But let us know what you guys think about this video. If you like it, please give it a like, give it a share. We would really appreciate that. Thanks for watching, everybody. See you.
Bye.